All right, let's get straight to it. What if I told you that the very first thing you do when you get on the ice, the sound of that auger ripping through the frozen water, is the exact reason you go home empty-handed most days? You think you're just making a hole to fish in, but you're actually sending a shock wave that either pushes fish right to you or sends them running for the next county. Today, we're not talking about lures or electronics or secret spots. We're talking about the pattern of your holes. I'm going to show you why the way most of us were taught to drill is a fish-repelling disaster. And I promise, by the end of this video, you'll see your auger not just as a hole maker, but as a strategic tool to trap fish. So let me ask you this, and be honest in the comments. Do you just walk out there and drill a perfect grid, hoping to get lucky? Because we need to talk. For generations, the logic seemed simple. The more holes you drill, the more water you cover, and the better your chances of finding fish. We've all seen it, and we've all done it. You pull up to a promising spot, a weed line, a drop-off, and you fire up the auger. You drill a grid of 6, 8, maybe a dozen holes. It looks efficient. It feels productive. It's what our grandfathers did, and it's what the guys next to us are doing. It's a habit burned into our ice fishing DNA. But we never stop to ask a simple question. What is this chaos actually doing to the fish below? We've been so focused on creating access points for ourselves that we've completely ignored how the fish react to a sudden, violent intrusion from above. We're about to change that entire mindset. Let's start with the sound itself. That auger isn't a quiet hum. Under the water, it's a violent, grinding explosion. Ice is incredibly efficient at transmitting sound and vibration. To a fish resting in the cold, quiet darkness, the sound of your auger blades tearing through the ice directly overhead is the equivalent of a bomb going off in their living room. Their entire world is suddenly filled with a terrifying, high-frequency noise and a low-frequency pressure wave. Their first and only instinct is to flee. The question isn't if they'll move, but where they'll move, and that's where your pattern comes into play, for better or for worse. Most anglers have no control over this reaction, but you're about to learn how to manipulate it. Now think about it from the fish's perspective. They don't see an angler looking for a meal. They sense a massive, threatening presence from above. Their lateral line, a highly sensitive organ that detects movement and vibration in the water, goes into overdrive. It's a pure survival response. They don't stick around to investigate the noise. They bolt for safety. Safety means deeper water, thicker cover, or simply getting as far away from the epicenter of that sound as possible. So when you drill a hole, you're not just opening a window to their world, you're setting off a fire alarm. The critical mistake most people make is setting off that alarm in a way that gives the fish an easy and permanent escape route away from their lures. This brings us to the most common mistake in all of ice fishing, the grid of death. This is when you drill a series of holes in a square, a rectangle, or a symmetrical grid right on top of the structure you want to fish. You drill one here, then 10 feet over, then 10 feet back, and so on until you've created a perfect, organized pattern. It makes sense on the surface. You're covering the area thoroughly, but what you've actually done is create a perimeter of chaos. You've surrounded the fish. You've blasted them with noise and pressure from the north, south, east, and west, all in the span of about 90 seconds. You've created a panic zone with no clear, safe place to retreat. So why does the grid pattern fail so spectacularly? Because it offers the fish too many escape routes, and none of them lead towards you. When you surround them with explosions, they don't huddle in the middle and wait for you. They scatter. They shoot out between the gaps in your grid and keep going. The fish that were on that point or weed line are now 20, 30, or 50 yards away in every direction. settling back down far from your perfectly drilled but now completely empty fishing area. You've effectively used your auger to herd all the fish out of your spot before you even had a chance to wet a line. It's the most counterproductive action you can take. Let's dig a little deeper into the science with pressure waves. Every time your auger punches through the ice, it doesn't just make noise. It creates a physical pressure wave that radiates outwards, like the ripple from a stone thrown in a pond. Fish are incredibly sensitive to these changes in pressure. This wave is a physical push. It's a signal of danger approaching. When you drill a grid, you're sending these waves crisscrossing under the ice from all angles. It's confusing and threatening. The fish feel pushed from all sides, and their only logical response is to find the path of least resistance and get away from that zone of intense, unpredictable pressure as fast as their fins can carry them. So it's time to stop thinking like someone who just needs a hole in the ice and start thinking like a predator. A wolf doesn't run into the middle of a herd of deer and start howling. It approaches from the edge, using the terrain to its advantage, trying to push its prey into a predictable location. Your auger is your primary tool for this. Your strategy shouldn't be to just show up and announce your presence with a dozen explosions. Your strategy should be to use the noise and pressure of that first hole to begin subtly influencing the fish's behavior and movement. We're not just drilling holes, we are setting a trap, a carefully planned, strategic trap. This directly busts the old myth of covering water quickly. Many anglers believe that the faster they can drill a dozen holes, the faster they can find the active fish. But this is a classic case of working hard, not smart. Drilling 50 holes in 10 minutes doesn't cover water effectively, it sterilizes it. You create such a massive disturbance that any fish that were in the area are long gone. It's better to drill 2 or 3 holes strategically, wait for things to calm down and actually fish, than to drill 20 holes that ensure there's nothing left to catch. Quality of drilling will always beat quantity. The goal is to be a sniper, not to carpet bomb the lake. This leads us to a much better approach. I call it the funnel concept. Instead of scattering fish in every direction, we are going to use the noise of the auger to gently push them or funnel them into a specific area where we want them to be. The goal is to create a wall of pressure on one side while leaving a clear, safe-looking escape route on the other. But here's the trick. That safe route is going to lead them directly into the zone you intend to fish. You are going to use their own survival instincts against them. This is a complete 180-degree shift from the chaotic grid method. It requires patience and a plan. Here's how you start building that funnel. The first step is to be quiet and deliberate. Let's say you're targeting a long underwater point. The old method would be to drill holes all over the top of it. The new method is to start on the edge, in deeper water, away from where you think the majority of the fish are holding. Your very first hole should be a test hole, drilled off to the side of the prime real estate. Don't march right into the best spot and start blasting away. You approach the target area with stealth. This first hole is your listening post, and it's also the first post in your funnel fence. After drilling that first 1 or 2 holes on the periphery, the next step is the hardest for most impatient anglers. You wait. Just wait. Give it 5, even 10 minutes. Let the sound dissipate. Let the pressure waves subside. Let any nearby fish that were startled calm back down. This is crucial. This quiet period allows the environment under the ice to return to a semi-normal state. While you're waiting, you can drop your transducer in the hole and see what's happening. Are there fish moving? Is there bait? This initial intelligence is far more valuable than anything you'd learn from drilling 10 more holes immediately. Now it's time to read the signs from those first 1 or 2 holes. Your electronics are your eyes here. If you see fish on your flasher, pay attention to which way they're moving. Did they appear after the drilling stopped? Are they suspended or are they tied to the bottom? If you see nothing, that's also information. It might mean you need to move, but instead of drilling another random hole, your next move will be a calculated step in building your funnel. The information from these quiet observational holes dictates your next move. This is active, responsive fishing, not blind, hopeful drilling. With that information, we begin to build our pattern. Forget the grid. We are now going to use what I call the creeping line or arc method. Instead of surrounding the spot, you're going to drill a line of holes along one side of the structure. Imagine that underwater point again. You'll drill a line of holes in the deeper water, moving progressively up towards the shallower top of the point. You are creating a wall of sound that will gently push any fish that are on the point away from the noise and towards the other quieter side. You are dictating their escape route. Here's the theory in action. As you drill your line of holes, say 3 or 4 of them spaced 15 feet apart, you are creating a continuous barrier of noise and pressure. Fish on the structure will feel this disturbance coming from one direction. Their natural instinct is to move away from it. They won't swim towards the sound of the drilling. They will move laterally along the structure, away from the pressure. You're not scaring them out of the county. You're just encouraging them to shift their position to a more comfortable, quieter area. And that's exactly where you want them to go. Let's use a classic weed line as a real-world example. Say the weed line runs north to south and the wind is coming from the west. Most guys would walk all over the weeds, drilling holes everywhere. Instead, you should start on the deep edge of the weed line and drill a few holes moving from south to north. This creates a pressure wall that nudges the fish that are holding in those weeds to move north along the line, away from you. They'll also be pushed tighter into the remaining weed cover for safety. You are effectively concentrating the fish into a smaller, predictable area. The key insight here is that you are drilling holes to move fish, not just to find them. You work from the outside in. You start where you think the fish aren't and use the drilling process to push them towards where you want them to be. This completely flips the traditional approach on its head. The noise is no longer a negative byproduct of getting set up. It's an active part of your presentation. You are using the auger like a cattle dog, herding the fish into a corner. This takes foresight. You have to visualize how the fish will react and plan your drilling sequence accordingly. This is how the trap is set. The fish feel the pressure from your creeping line of holes and retreat to what they perceive as the safe zone, the undisturbed part of the structure. They feel secure there because it's quiet. They believe they have escaped the danger, but they have no idea that you planned this all along. The quiet zone they've been herded into is precisely where you are going to focus your fishing efforts. You've stacked the odds in your favor by manipulating the underwater environment before you even bait your hook. They are trapped and they don't even know it. And where are your primary fishing holes? They are the first 1 or 2 quiet holes you drilled on the other side of the structure before you even started your creeping line. Or they are holes you drill last, after the main disturbance is over, right in the heart of that quiet, safe zone. The fish have been pushed from the noisy side and are now concentrated on the calm side. You've essentially taken a loosely scattered population of fish and condensed them into a high-probability target area. It's a beautiful thing when it works, and it works more often than not. Let's contrast this one last time with the grid. The grid is shock and awe. It's a multi-front attack that creates maximum panic and dispersal. The funnel, or creeping line, is a strategic flanking maneuver. It's a single-front pressure system that creates predictable movement and concentration. One is chaos, the other is control. One is loud, dumb, and brutish. The other is quiet, smart and surgical. Which approach do you think a true predator would take? The choice becomes pretty obvious when you think about the goal, not just to drill holes, but to actually catch fish. Ultimately, this method embraces the element of stealth. Every hole you drill has a purpose beyond just being a place to drop your line. Some holes are for gathering information, some holes are for creating pressure and moving fish, and some holes are for catching them. It turns a 10-minute brute force task into a thoughtful, strategic process. It requires you to slow down, to think about the layout of the underwater world, and to predict how your actions will influence the creatures living there. This is the next level of ice angling intelligence. It's about being a sniper, not a machine gunner. The final piece of this puzzle is how you fish this new pattern. You don't just start jigging in a random hole, you start in the holes located along the escape route you created. You work the quiet side of the structure first, because that's where the fish have been pushed. You can then work your way back towards the more disturbed water later, catching the less spooked, more aggressive fish first. Your entire session becomes more efficient because you're not just fishing dead water you've scared everything out of. You are fishing in an area that you have strategically populated with your target species. So let's bring it all home. For years, we've been told to drill, drill, drill. But we've been doing it all wrong. We've been treating our augers like jackhammers, scattering the very fish we came to catch. The biggest takeaway, the real aha moment, is this. The noise and pressure from your auger is not your enemy. It is a powerful tool. You can either use that tool to create a dead zone of chaos, or you can use it to strategically herd fish into a trap. By shifting from a chaotic grid to a deliberate linear pattern, a funnel, you transform from someone who just hopes to land on a fish to someone who actively manipulates the fish to come to them. This simple change in your first 10 minutes on the ice could honestly change your entire season. Thank you so much for watching. If this blew your mind a little, do me a favor and hit that like button, and make sure you're subscribed for more content that goes against the grain. Now for the big question, what's the go-to hole pattern you've always used? And after watching this, are you going to change it? I want to hear all about it down in the comments.